There are moments when the question of death does not feel distant but immediate, as though it stands quietly beside life, waiting without urgency. And yet, for something so certain, it remains deeply unknown. Over the years, there have been thousands of accounts from individuals who came close to death and returned. These are not abstract ideas, but lived experiences described with clarity, consistency, and often with a sense of certainty that is difficult to dismiss. Many of them begin in a similar way. There is a moment where the body begins to fail, and with it, the familiar sense of control begins to dissolve. Pain may be present, or there may be a sudden silence. Then, quite unexpectedly, there is a shift. Several individuals describe a feeling of separation, as though they are no longer confined to the body. They report observing their surroundings from a distance, sometimes even recalling details that they could not have physically perceived in that state. From a scientific perspective, this is often explained as a disruption in the brain's integration of sensory information. When the brain is under extreme stress, its ability to maintain a unified sense of self begins to weaken, and this may create the impression of observing oneself from outside. Yet for those who experience it, the clarity of perception does not feel like confusion. It feels more precise than ordinary awareness. Following this, many accounts speak of movement, not always through space as we understand it, but through a transition that feels directed. Some describe darkness, others describe a sense of expansion, and many speak of encountering a form of light. This light is not merely described as a visual object, but as a presence that carries a sense of familiarity, calm, and understanding. Scientifically, such experiences are often associated with changes in the visual cortex and the release of neurochemicals that affect perception and emotion. As oxygen levels drop and neural pathways begin to destabilize, the brain may generate vivid and immersive experiences. At the same time, there are elements within these accounts that remain difficult to fully explain through physiology alone. One such element is what is often described as a life review. Individuals report witnessing moments from their lives, not as distant memories, but as immediate experiences, sometimes accompanied by an awareness of how their actions affected others. This is not described as judgment imposed from outside, but as a form of direct understanding. From a neurological perspective, it is possible that the brain, under extreme conditions, activates memory networks in a rapid and unfiltered manner, allowing past experiences to arise in quick succession. But the depth of emotional and relational clarity described in these moments raises further questions. Philosophically, such experiences have been interpreted in different ways. Some traditions suggest that consciousness is not limited to the body, and that these experiences offer a glimpse into its continuity beyond physical existence. Others suggest that the mind, when freed from ordinary constraints, reveals its own depth in ways that are not usually accessible during daily life. At the same time, it must be acknowledged that not all near-death experiences are peaceful. Some individuals report confusion, fear, or fragmented impressions, which indicates that these experiences are not uniform and may be shaped by multiple factors. What remains consistent, however, is the transformation that often follows. Many who return from such states describe a reduced fear of death, a shift in priorities, and a greater sense of clarity about what holds value in life. Relationships gain importance. Superficial concerns begin to lose their hold, and there is often a quiet recognition that life, as it is being lived, carries a depth that was not previously noticed. So while the question of what happens after death remains open, these experiences offer something else. They do not give a final answer, but they change the way the question is held. Science continues to examine the mechanisms within the brain, seeking to understand how such experiences arise. Philosophy continues to explore the nature of consciousness, asking whether it extends beyond what can be measured. Between these two, there remains a space where human experience continues to speak. Perhaps it is within this space that the question of death begins to return us to life, not with fear, but with attention. Because whatever lies beyond, the way one lives now begins to take on a different clarity when seen from that edge. And in that clarity, the question of death quietly transforms into a deeper inquiry into life itself.